This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
Welcome back to the second part of my interview with ChangeMaker Ismael Guerrero, the president and CEO at Mercy Housing, the nation's largest affordable housing nonprofit organization. Ismael, I want to take a couple of steps back and talk about your time running the Denver Housing Authority, which I believe is one of the largest housing authorities in the Rocky Mountain region. How many units do you have there?
Denver Housing Authority is the largest housing authority in the Rocky Mountain region. And we had a little over a combined 12,000 housing units when you look at both the properties that we owned and managed and the housing choice vouchers that we administered. We were providing large number of opportunities for families to both live in healthy communities or through the voucher program have the choice of where they live and the ability to be mobile in terms of where their social networks are, where they felt the best schools were, and have that mobility.
You definitely had a good handle of, how to operate and effectively guide policy and implement compliance and, just really provide value added for the region. So, with that perspective there, what would you wish other housing authorities were doing more of or even doing less of?
For housing authorities, the ones that I looked up to the most, the ones that we learned from at DHA, and we had a lot of peer exchanges. It's a very tight, supportive community among housing authorities in this country. We learn and give lessons back and forth all the time. The ones that are having the most impact, I would say, are the housing authorities like Denver Housing Authority that was seeing housing as a platform for improving quality of life of residents and really transforming the neighborhoods where our housing communities were located. So it was not just being a steward and a developer of housing, but it was being more of a neighborhood transformation agent. And I see that happening. The work that we were doing in Denver at the Denver Housing Authority, I see that happening in communities like Cleveland, like Seattle, Los Angeles, Austin. I can name countless cities where housing authorities were really change agents for their cities and for the neighborhoods where they were located and where they were investing in. How could I forget my hometown of Chicago? That's Chicago Housing Authority is just doing that kind of same transformative work in neighborhoods where they've traditionally had housing units.
So, what I hear you saying is, housing authorities really have the ability to make revitalization and that neighborhood renaissance. They are not just involved, but they can actually be leading those efforts in cities. And there are numerous examples of that happening. That's what I'm hearing you say, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
With so many best practices across the nation, there's really not an excuse for a community not to be doing that. But yet we also know the tension with the lack of funding for affordable housing or adequate funding to preserve what we have. And so it's caused practitioners to get really creative, but there's still a gap. So why do you think, from your perspective, there continues to be this struggle with adequately funding affordable housing?
I believe that the affordable housing crisis that we have in this country is at such a scale that it really takes national leadership to bring the resources to the table to really address the gap that we have in affordability at a level that can be impactful. The most impactful program we have today, the low income housing tax credit, generates billions of dollars through the tax code to give companies and investors an opportunity to make a tax advantage investment in a way that really provides affordability. To take that program and try to break it down into 50 individual state programs would be incredibly inefficient and not have the same impact. Similarly, a national program like the Housing Choice Voucher Program that provides rental subsidies to individuals or project-based subsidies to developers, if that needs to be scaled up and can only be done the right way at a national level. To try to do that at 50 different state levels would be almost impossible administratively and very inefficient. At the same time, I will say that it's very heartening to see that while the federal response has been lacking, and frankly has not kept up with the demand. Congress, the administration continue to underfund public housing authorities, continue to underfund the voucher program to what the real need is. It's great to see state leadership and city leadership, certainly like we had in Denver here in Colorado, that are generating their own local resources to try to make an impact and cover the gap and have additional investment in affordable housing, in homeownership opportunities, in addressing fair housing discriminations at a local, regional, and state level. So it's really now, it takes both better national leadership, larger investments at the national level in affordable housing, but also local communities to get involved and to also be part of the solution to the housing crisis and the housing needs that they have locally.
One of the things on a previous podcast that Adrienne Todman mentioned, she said that, it's obvious where priorities are based upon the funding, and in the middle of all of the funding that has come through from the national pandemic, we've seen a nation mobilize for what they view as a priority. And so then you pause and think, then why is the struggle there for adequately funding affordable housing? Why is there short funding, underfunding, lack of capital investment happening for existing stock or construction of new? And so there's several pieces to that, but definitely, like you mentioned, the leadership, the prioritization of several of those items. And so why do you see some of the challenges as we move into a national recovery mode? Whether it's rent stabilization, but what do you see as some of the challenges as we start pursuing recovery here?
The pandemic has really exposed some systemic historical barriers and challenges that were there before, but just made them worse and showed just how far we were from really being, a socially just society. So the three things that always stand out to me are: one is the importance of housing stability. There has been so much anxiety, and we're just entering the next phase of potential mass evictions because people did not have stable housing when there was an economic crisis, when people had a medical emergency, lost a job, were disabled for temporarily. Without stable housing, you could easily find yourself homeless, and that's a downward spiral that's very difficult to get yourself back out of. So think about all the hospitality workers, all the restaurant service workers who, out of no fault of their own, found themselves unemployed and with not a lot of prospect for a quick recovery. So definitely housing stability has been a key one. We're also seeing the need to access services and education remotely, the importance of internet connectivity, and really the priority of closing the digital divide, of making the internet access equal to a utility. It should be there in every home, the way heat, gas, and water is available in every home. Because seniors and people with disabilities need to now access telehealth services more readily and confidently. And as we're seeing for everybody who's homeschooling their kids right now, because the schools can't reopen, how important it is for remote learning to have the bandwidth and the technology in the home so that every kid has an opportunity to continue to learn, and we don't see our education achievement gap continue to widen. So those are the priorities, I think, in terms of as we plan for the recovery of where we need to invest and where we need to really focus on so that we're ready for the next disruption that might happen, whether it be health, economic, or climate related. We know these events are getting to be more frequent, and so we should anticipate how we can best prepare families to be resilient and to sustain whatever that disruption might be and come out on the other end of it in a good place to recover on their own.
Well, those are very wise words to set out a path on how we should be doing this. So good notes there for all of us. And I know that many people are, feeling scattered in exactly where they should focus, their efforts in this recovery. And so, those top 3 or 4 things that you've just mentioned are fantastic ways for people to start laying out a plan and be ready for the next one, because if anything we've learned is that there will be a next one. So
Exactly.
I appreciate these proactive words here. Well, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic time to gather with you and chat about what's going on with Mercy Housing, the fantastic results that you delivered at the Denver Housing Authority, and then laying out some national policy priorities for us.
Well, thank you, Katie. It's been great talking to you and really appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.